Welcome to Writers Blockbusters, the show where you treat the final edit of the movie like the script. I'm one of the hosts, Bob Rose, at Thundergrunt Bob on all the horrific social medias. And right now, Jamie's going to introduce himself.
I'm Jamie Nash. I'm a screenwriter and the writer of Save the Cat Writes for TV and the Save the Cat Beat Sheet workbook. And soon, Save the Cat Writes Horror. Check it out. And that comes out on September 13th, but you can pre-order it now.
Okay, and Jimmy's going to introduce himself.
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and script consultant, writer of 0 books, but you can find me at scriptbutcher.com.
0 books. What a loser. I say with 0 books. Today, we're going to talk about How to Train Your Dragon from 2010 specifically. But before we get into our talking points, we're going to go around and we're going to talk about our personal thoughts, feelings, whatever on this movie. I'll start because I think mine is really fast, and I also wrote down just a little set of facts. But to sum up my feelings on this movie, I took my mom to see the live action remake recently, and we walked out. She absolutely loved it. And I said to her the following phrase or following sentence. I said, well, when you get the same guy to direct a remake of his perfect movie, you're going to get a pretty damn solid movie. And that's pretty much my feeling on How to Train Your Dragon. It's a perfect movie. But the second thing I wanted to say, which isn't really personal to me, is I didn't realize how popular this franchise is at all. I'm not talking about box office. I was looking up stuff for this episode, and so listen to what this franchise consists of. It consists of 4 films, soon to be 5. That's 2. The second live action remake has already been greenlit. 6 short films, 7 video games, 3 animated series.
Whoa!
3. 2 of those animated series went 8 seasons long. The other one went 6. That's a total of 22 seasons of television and 223 episodes.
Whoa! I had no idea.
I had no clue that those even existed. I feel like most adults don't know that those exist.
And how many?
I didn't realize how
books
famous
too. Yeah.
I'm not going to list everything. There's a new theme park attraction that's like a whole section of the park and everything. I didn't realize how big How to Train Your Dragon was until I realized that there were 3 freaking animated series. There's even short films. I was like, there's short films they made? Oh my God. This is way more famous and popular than I think I even knew. I always just considered it a perfect movie. I guess I'm too old to know about all this stuff, but I thought that was crazy. If you consider 223 episodes of television, Cheers was 271. It was almost as... And they're probably going to keep going, so eventually there'll be as much Cheers as there is How to Train Your Dragon television. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I think it's a perfect movie. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
I could.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it, Jimmy.
Yeah.
No, Jimmy, go for it.
Yeah. So when Bob suggested this, I think this was a Bob suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you suggested it. I've never actually seen the movie, so this was a first time watch for me. But I do have some ties to it, personally, just small. I used to babysit my nephew Justin, my sister's son, when he was a kid, and this was like his favorite video game. So we would always, that's my introduction to this universe, to this story world, was playing the game. And
one of the 7 video games.
One of the 7, but this was the first one. This was
about
15 years ago. He's in college now.
Oh wow.
So, and then the second thing is another nephew of mine, my brother's son, Aiden. He is autistic and he communicates, but he doesn't speak much. This movie is his favorite movie, and this movie actually, my brother told me, like, inspires him to try to speak. Like, he wants to talk about How to Train Your Dragon. And when the new one, the live action remake, was announced, Aiden would be excited about it and ask my brother and his wife Rachel about it in his own way every single day for 6 months. And they're already talking
Wow.
about how for the next one, the sequel, they know he's going to ask about it every single day until it comes out. He's that excited. And he has never wanted to sit through a movie in the movie theater before. So they took him to this because he's been looking forward to it for 6 months, the live action remake. And he actually like loved it and wanted to stay for the whole thing. And then he wanted to go again. So they went again and he stayed for the whole thing. So they're really excited about it. And it's just beautiful, you know. It reminds you that movies absolutely do matter, you know. And and I borrowed Aiden's DVD to watch it for this episode, so it's really cool. So of course I was already gonna love it even before watching it. I agree with you, Bob. It's a wonderful movie, and I watched the DVD extras, and here's a quote from Jay Baruchel. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The actor that plays the voice of Hiccup. And in 2010, he said this, and I think he already knew how special the movie was. He was right. He said, "I went to DreamWorks Studios. It's impossible not to be moved when you see the absolute army of people working on this movie. I care about everything I work on, but sometimes it becomes glaringly obvious that I'm a part of something great, something special, something that kids will watch and reference for a long, long time. After watching this movie, I felt like I could retire tomorrow because now I've been in something that'll be in the annals of history." So that was 15 years ago. He said that.
You know, I saw him. He made a quote about somebody asked him about the live action remake, and he basically, he was just like telling the new cast, like, have fun with it. It's great to be a part of something that people actually give a shit about.
That's
Like,
awesome.
he wasn't being negative, but he's like, this is what I'll be. He was basically acknowledging what your quote is saying years later, like 15 years later. Like, this is the thing. This is who I am.
Yeah.
No matter what anything else I did.
So
it's his Star Wars.
It's his exactly. So I thought I really wanted
That's
to
really
mention
good. Yeah.
that quote. Yeah. So yeah.
Also, I feel like Jimmy, every time I see somebody saying one of the like, is this live action remake necessary? I feel like your story right there justifies it.
That's what I'm
One
saying.
kid being that excited.
Is it necessary? You don't think about what it brings, why it matters to people for different reasons than why it may matter to you and your experience, what you get out of a movie compared to what other people get out of a movie. So
it might even be greenlit cynically. It still it still did something there.
Yes.
So,
yeah. They all went together as a family. Like, how beautiful is that? Yeah.
It's great.
So
awesome. Jamie.
Yeah. So, to touch on that. So my son has autism and severe autism, and he never goes to the movies. He's been like twice, but he loves movies and he watches clips only, like very hard, even though he sat down with me and watched like the whole ending of E.T. the other day, but he's really into endings right now. Like, we only watch the end of movies. And it's like, that's what we watch. And it's like, bye-bye. He always says like, bye-bye, E.T. E.T.'s gone or whatever. But it's always that. And we just watch the end of one movie, but they're weird movies. Like, my son watches Boys Don't Cry. I don't know. The ending of Boys. I've seen the ending of Boys Don't Cry like 50 times this week.
Interesting.
So it's all, a lot of them are visuals. Some of them are just emotions. But anyway, How to Train Your Dragon is one of the clips I see in rotation heavily. The other thing he really likes is explosions. He's a big Michael Bay fan. And he, in fact, sometimes he'll just say, Michael Bay explosion, and he'll watch something. So we watched the end of the explosion scene of How to Train Your Dragon, the whole battle scene. I've seen that scene many, many, many times. But back in 2010, I don't even think I saw this in the theater. I don't think I did. I can't remember. But when I saw it, I was really amazed by it. I was really impressed by it. I thought, like kind of Bob said, it was like the perfect movie. Like, it just did everything right. It was short. It was fast paced. It's super fast paced, which would really impress me. And it was inventive. It felt like a new world. Mixing Vikings with dragons was kind of new. Vikings and trolls I've seen, Vikings and dragons, a little different. So, I just thought it was kind of like the perfect, fun, epic, heartfelt, a mix of all different genres. Just a fun movie. So I'm I'm a big fan of the movie. I haven't seen it a ton of times, with the exception of the final 10-minute explosion scenes.
It's a good scene.
That's the
It's a
scene.
good scene. So yeah, it's great.
I have that one memorized, but other than that, yeah, I probably only seen this movie twice.
I'm pretty sure. Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm pretty
probably my
sure I
third time.
saw the press screening, Jamie.
Okay,
I think
maybe I saw it
this
too.
If I was there, you might have been there. I
Yeah,
can't
you know what?
remember though. It's
Now that you
15
say
years.
that, because I'm like, when did I see this movie? And I around that time I did see all the animated movies. I've since given
Right,
up.
same.
Kind of, I don't really watch them all anymore, but I saw every Pixar movie and every universe. You know, I saw them all. It was probably the press screening. You're absolutely right. That's probably where I saw it.
I
Yeah.
don't have any specific memory of like us seeing each other there. I just know I saw this at a press screening.
I don't remember the
But-
theater I was in. Like some of them I do.
Right. Probably White Marsh.
Like I remember seeing Rango, and that made an impression on me. Like that's another one of my son's
love
favorite
Rango.
movies. That's like one of his top 3 movies. But anyway, I don't exactly remember this, but I remember coming out of it saying, being surprised actually, like not expecting much watching it, and then being like, wow, that killed it. It's just another, like perfect animation movies in kind of a renaissance phase where there was just like one great animated movie after another.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the whole trilogy is kind of awesome. If memory serves, I haven't watched the entire trilogy, but I loved all 3.
Truth is, I've never seen 2 or 3.
Me neither. I just saw
They're
this one.
quality. I mean, they're still the same director and team and
Mhm.
stuff. And they're quality movies. Also, I'd say this has nothing to do with the script, but you can't look up this movie without it being like best scores of at least
the score.
at least this century. At least this century, it's on like a top 10 list of best scores.
I immediately went and looked up the tracks.
And-
Yep.
Yeah. John Powell's score is like it's just it. This is why it can last. So, when you have great music, people want to hear that music again and again. It's just so good. Okay.
But
Well-
one other thing.
Go ahead.
I already booked my tickets for Epic Universal
Right.
Studios, so I will be seeing. Toothless is there. They have a live Toothless that you can interact with.
Oh my
And
gosh,
they have-
that's
and
awesome.
like a real size Toothless that kids interact. I don't think they'll let me do it. And then they have like a show where Hiccup is flying on the back over your head of Toothless, like in live action.
And there's I saw like some clip where it's like a half-size village of Burke from from How to Train Your Dragon 2, like after the dragons are integrated into the world.
That's right.
And you can like walk around it and see, there's all like miniature stuff, and it's
Yeah.
crazy. I didn't know it was that popular.
Yeah, there's that, and then of course there's the Universal Monsters are there too. So that's the other section of that area. So
Damn, Jamie.
Crazy.
When's that?
December.
Oh.
I'm going in December.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I mean, who wrote this shit?
Who wrote this shit? Sponsored by Colgate. I don't know where Colgate
wish.
came from. Yeah. Who wrote? No, it should be a toilet paper, I guess, right? Wipe away your shit with Mr. Whipple. Does anybody know who Mr. Whipple is anymore?
Of course. Dare to Be Stupid. Weird
Well,
Al.
not you. Yeah, I don't know. Mr. Whipple. So the writers of this, and I do have a question about the writers of this. Does anybody know why both directors didn't come back for the live action?
Because Chris Sanders directed they're both doing their own movies now.
Okay.
He did The Wild Robot, and Dean Dubois.
Gotcha.
Dubois. I don't know how to say his last name.
Dubois.
He
Dubois.
he directed the other 2 movies and then the live action remake.
Okay.
But they both have their careers, split after, I guess, this triumph, right? I mean, they've had a pretty solid go of everything. So
it's funny, when I saw The Wild Robot, I just assumed they both directed that. I didn't even realize. I don't think I ever looked it up.
What's interesting here is what's out in theaters at the same time, if you consider how successful these guys are.
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch live action remake and the How to Train Your Jet. Like, man, what a home run.
Right.
of a,
So
Yeah.
of a
Lilo and
franchise
Stitch,
starter.
they were coming off of Lilo and Stitch before this. So anyway, who wrote it? Dean DeBlois and Chris Sanders. I have no idea. It could be Dean DeBlois for all I know.
I think it's the French
Okay,
pronunciation.
we'll go
I
with
think.
that. And it's I was trying to think of the lady from The Substance. What was her name? Carly Fargo or what?
Yeah.
Fargo.
Caroline
Fargo.
Fajon.
Fargo.
Fargo, yeah.
Fargo. Yeah.
So they were the writers and the directors of this movie. It was based on a book, and in particular, they were coming off Lilo and Stitch. What else did they do? Let me click on it.
Oh man, the Chris guy goes all the way back to he's a story writer on Aladdin, and he's a story writer on The Lion King. And I don't have an IMDb in front of me. I just remember that.
I do.
It's all
so,
like extremely solid work.
Yeah, and their IMDb is so large because of all the new movies and things like.
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. If you, I mean,
Mulan
like
looks like one of the first things. The Croods.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it goes way back.
Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Mulan, Lilo and Stitch, The Croods, 1 and 2. Then Wild Robot, How to Train a Dragon.
I mean,
it's all solid.
And then
it makes sense why this is so good.
And
The Croods is a good movie. I've seen The Croods. It's a solid movie.
And then they did Uncut Gems, which is really weird.
Right, it's just incredible. What a switch up of tone.
Yeah, it came out of nowhere. Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
So anyway, the book was let me go to my notes on the book. The book for Uncut Gems. Now, there are some differences in the book to the movie. So the book was more of a kid's book. It was like Hiccup was actually around age 10 to 12.
Okay.
So they aged him up to get more adult themes.
Mm-hmm.
Toothless was tiny. He's like the size of a dog. He's not really scary. He's kind of like this little creature and he can actually talk. They speak Dragonese.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
He's like Alf.
Yeah, and here's the weirder. Yeah, exactly. Here's one of the weirdest things is that the rules or their world building was completely different, where all the Vikings trained dragons as pets. So the Ark was like I don't even know. I didn't read the book, so I'm not sure what the Ark was. Like how our hero changed over the course of it, but it really wasn't this warlike thing or anything. It wasn't the danger. It wasn't as scary. It was more of a kid's book. It was British, and it leaned more into whimsical jokes and things like that, and British humor. And I'm trying to think if there was
maybe his arc was
else.
just eventually learning how to bond and train a dragon, and that's his acceptance with his father.
Yeah,
because his father probably had a big dragon already. I guess.
Here's the weird thing. I don't think his father was the same character. He was bumbling and comedy dad, and he wasn't like a big character in it.
Oh, more like British comedy.
Yeah, he was kind of just like a big goofball.
John Cleese.
And
so they took the name and the dragons and the Vikings and made their own movie.
Exactly. And in the end, it said the note I took was, or I copied down, was a tribe accepts dragons and Hiccup earns some respect, but the stakes are lighter and the tone is pretty much comedic all the way through. So anyway, just to give you some
the adaptation process.
So they actually made it a more adult movie, even though it's still a kid's movie.
Right. And kind of to segue into this a little bit is there's a interview with Dean DeBlois. There's an interview with him on the DeBlois.
Apologies to our French listeners.
Yeah, right. He's a really great director, so I don't want to.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Quentin Tarantino or whatever his name is.
Tarantino.
So there's an interview on the Blake Snyder website with him because he was actually in Blake Snyder, Save the Cat writers group. Around the time he was making all these early movies like Lilo and Stitch and stuff. I think Chris Sanders was in there as well. So they were in Blake Snyder's writing group, and they actually came to the project after it had been in development for a while, and they couldn't crack it. They didn't seem to be able to crack it, and they brought those two in off of Lilo and Stitch. I can't remember who left. I think it's in the interview. It describes it. And they had a deadline. They had a 1.5 year deadline for the movie. There was a release date of 1.5 years that it was coming out. And that's like nothing for animation. Like animation, it usually takes that long to figure out the storyboard. You're just getting started after like a year or something.
Right.
So and they came in, and they said what the first thing they did was they started to figure out the Save the Cat beat sheet for it. Like that's what they did. They kind of broke down a Save the Cat beat sheet. They did the note cards. They had read the book in 2005 and just were really religious followers of the Save the Cat book at the time. So they broke the story, and they did note cards. They did everything. They did the full thing. And then they even brought in that writing group, like in the post-production process, which in animation, it all blends together because you can change. You've heard the stories of like Pixar where they scrap entire movies in the middle of like their post-production process. So they brought in the writers group to actually discuss, give notes and things like that. And they actually said one note. He mentions one note Blake Snyder gave him was somewhere in the beginning of the movie. It was unclear what Hiccup actually wanted. Like they were like, I don't know what he wants. He's just kind of there. So I think they beefed up the aspect that he wanted to fit in. He wanted to be like the other Vikings, because I think it was a little confusing because he was a certain character that really didn't want to kill a dragon in some ways. So it was kind of like, why does he want to kill a dragon? What's in it for him? And they beefed up that aspect of it. Blake Snyder actually gets a dedication at the end of the movie. And it's, I think Dean fought for that, he said. So the interview is quite long and actually interesting, but if you Google like Save the Cat Blake Snyder, you'll find it, interview. I found it and it was like the first thing I found when I Google searched it because I knew it was up there. I hadn't read it in a while. It's actually a very thorough interview about the process and how they got brought in, and I think it's worth reading. And one thing I skipped over was the box office. So we can talk box office super quick. This movie made worldwide almost $500 million. It was 494. So
in 2010, that's pretty solid.
In 2010,
pretty solid. I'll give you my favorite thing, the 2010 list.
What was the budget of this movie? Before you get to your lists,
I did not look that part.
I'll look it up.
Oh, here it is. 165. It's 165.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a lot for then. That's not a cheap movie, but all animation, all these big studio animated films cost that much because they had so many people working on them for so long. And so 165, but no joke with that. I mean, they were taking a big swing. This wasn't like some sleeper movie that came out of nowhere. They knew it had to make money. So the 2010 box office, this is the domestic box office. So this is not the international. Let me see. Can I click the international? Am I going to screw anything up? Yeah, I screwed something up. Hold on a second.
This will be a good list for the top 10 of the new century or whatever, the New York Times.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, Jamie just posted his.
So. Yeah, we're doing those other movies. We're doing them.
So here we go. Number one, this is domestic, remember? Avatar, number one. At
You can't beat Avatar.
466. You can't beat Avatar. It was the #1 movie of all time, I think, when
Oh
it came
yeah,
out, right?
okay.
Number 2, Toy Story 3, another big
Ooh,
animated
on
film.
Jamie's
Ooh.
list
On my
from.
list.
Also, arguably a perfect movie.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
They should
Pretty
have
solid.
stopped.
It's they should have stopped there. Exactly. Number 3, a movie I've never seen. Alice in Wonderland.
The
334.
Burton one. Oof.
It's another one my son shows me clips of a lot. He likes the weird characters in it and stuff.
I went to
So-
the press screening for that, and I remember walking out and saying to our mutual friend Kevin, "I will never sit through that again."
We're doing it next time.
That's
No,
right.
we are not doing
On the next Writers Blockbusters, Alice in Wonderland. The anniversary, 15-year anniversary.
We'll do
I don't
first.
dislike movies often, but
You don't, yeah.
yeah.
So number 4, Iron Man 2 at
Okay.
312. Number 5, another movie I've never seen, the Twilight Saga, Eclipse. I
Oh,
saw the first Twilight at $300 million.
damn.
That's
Damn,
a
those
lot
are
of
making
money.
some money. Yeah,
Yeah, because
making
this is
money.
domestic. You figure
Yeah.
worldwide, probably almost scratched $1 billion or something, probably 600 or something. Probably doubled its money. It would be a click away if I could figure it out. Inception is number 6 at 292. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, Part 1. There's the dog chiming in. That's his favorite movie. Despicable Me was number 8.
Okay.
Shrek Forever After was number 9. And at number 10, How to Train Your Dragon.
A lot of animation.
Yeah.
Ton of animation.
It's funny too. Well, it's not funny, but we're sitting here as Pixar's newest is completely tanking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's like the point where they posted about it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like Pixar actually said something to the public about it. Just what a change from 2010 to
Yes.
now.
To hit your point, though, about the animation, within this list, there are even 2 more in the next. There's Tangled at number 14
Oh shit!
and Megamind at number 15.
Whoa.
Both great movies.
Yeah, all of those in 2010. So 2010 must have been like peak animation years.
Yeah, wow.
Like
I
making
mean, you could just
animated
print
film.
money with
There was-
making.
There
that
was a
stuff.
Megamind trailer on the DVD when I popped it in. I love that.
Megamind's a solid movie.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it.
Me
Yeah.
too.
But yeah, I guess back then that was like when that sweet spot for you make one of these things, you're printing money.
Yeah, they're going to show up.
Yeah. Well, you want to talk about book to movie changes, or you kind of already covered that? Do you have any more to add to that, Jamie?
No, nothing more. That was.
Oh
all.
no, that was everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, let's talk about Toothless and his rooting resume.
Yeah, I put this on here because it just struck me while watching it that Toothless is such a great character, and why, like to and I think that it comes down to Jamie's rooting resume. Jamie, we'll wind you up. Pull
Sure
the
thing.
string. Go.
Pull the string.
Sure thing. So the rooting resume is just kind of a checklist of ways you can get your reader, your audience, your viewer to root for your character. And these things usually are communicated in a very subtle and cool way in the first 10 pages of a screenplay, 12 pages. And they just get, it endears us, the audience, to the hero's side. So anyway, it's a checklist of inspirations, of prompts almost, of common things seen to root for your character. Probably not the complete list, but I think it's probably the ones that are the most common that you see. And I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and what I like about this is something good to think about if you're out there writing is you can stack these and you can keep them coming. Like it doesn't have to be like in the first 10 minutes you have to check all 8 of these boxes. You can check one box here, and then, as the movie progresses and the character's changing or their situation is changing, you can continue to check boxes that might not have been checked before. It's a continual evolving list that, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say one other thing. Like, Save the Cat is kind of one of those boxes. Like,
Yes.
so the idea that you save a cat, and because you do that, because you save some little innocent creature, we root for you because you're a good person
Yes.
at heart. That's like one possible of many different ways you can get people on your side.
Yes. So I don't know if either of you pulled up. I sent you Jamie's blank
I'm looking
PDF.
at it right now.
Okay. Yeah. I thought we could just riff, like
Yeah,
look at
let's.
this.
Do you want me to read it so you
Yeah,
don't have
go
to be
for
doing
it.
it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just go down the list, and if we think something applies to Toothless, throw it out there because
Yeah.
I think most of it
I think
does.
that everyone is. I mean, I bet every single one
Yeah,
of the
you have
8
something for
master
everyone.
categories. I bet. Yeah, I didn't do it, but yeah.
I mean, it would be the same for Hiccup too, but that's
Yeah.
Okay, these are just for Toothless though.
Yeah.
Okay, number 1, they're underdogs.
Yep. I
Yep.
mean,
And I think
mean,
the injury,
the
especially,
injury,
makes
he
them
can't fly
wonderful.
anymore. He's stuck in this, like, I don't know what you'd call that area, but it's kind of like an
it's like a
indented
pit, basically.
It's like yeah, it's a big colorful pit. It's a nice pit.
It's a nice pit, but it's a pit.
Yeah.
Well, and then they accentuate that by later Gobber saying a down dragon is a dead dragon, and you see the fear in Hiccup's eyes when he says that, and we know he's that Hiccup is down. I mean that Toothless is down. There's underneath Jamie's heading here of their underdogs. One of the bullet points I see is the world treats them unjustly.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, definitely.
They're a hunted species.
Yes. Yes. And
they're not just a hunted species, they're a controlled, subservient hunted species. So
yeah. And then under this same heading is that they're dealing with physical or mental afflictions. And as we know, they're like one of his tail fins is busted. So we got that too.
Right. You could also, I like that they're Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I mean, dragons don't get any respect in Burke, so
yeah.
Okay, number 2, they care about something or someone.
And I think,
he cares about Hiccup and eventually Astrid.
Yeah, and basically all of them eventually. Yeah.
I mean, eventually, yeah, they care about humans.
They care about the whole village eventually. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah,
that cat, which they save. No, they are the cat.
I would say Hiccup saves the cat, which is Toothless himself.
Yes.
Yeah. 3, they try very hard to make their lives better. I mean,
yeah.
It's like inarguable, right? Like, how does he do this though? Like, he basically bends maybe his distrust of humans.
Yes, his fear of humans.
His fear. He faces his fear of humans to overcome that, and because he has to get out of this pit. He has to get out of the.
In second watch, I noticed what I didn't really notice before: all the little beats of Toothless trying to like get away once he's up and running. You know what I mean? Once his tail fin starts working, there's a couple beats where Toothless is like, all right, see you later, dude. And it doesn't work. Yeah.
No, and Toothless is, both of them have to do this, but his acknowledgement that they have to fly, they have to do it together.
Yes.
It's like completely different than he's ever, he has to adjust to that.
Exactly. They've been a solo creature, both of them. Yeah.
Both of them for so long. So yeah, they both try very hard to make their lives better. 4, they're fun. Duh.
Definitely.
Funny. Jamie's got funny, sweetness, charming, not sexy. Kind of adorkable though. You could argue that
I think there's some adorable moments for sure with the fish and all the things spitting them out.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, they're fun. I mean, that if Toothless wasn't fun, you wouldn't have 200 some episodes of a television show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
5, we know their struggle. This is a little bit maybe trickier, but
yeah, I mean, like we see that Toothless can't fly. I mean, that's
that's a disability or a ailment or a physical restraint.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I would say being hunted or being hated.
Yeah. The reason this one's a little weird is usually it's like they have a struggle like we personally have a struggle.
Yes.
Right,
Where
right. But
because
we're
it's
not
more,
dragons.
yeah, we have to kind of metaphorically
Yes,
jump
because
for something.
they're not they're not hiding
Well-
that from anybody. Yeah,
They're being controlled by their authoritarian
yeah.
dragon, and they're also hated by an entire population
Yeah.
Mhm.
of human beings. So there's something there
Mhm.
that everyone
if it
can
was
see.
if it was
you know.
Hiccup, you could say like, it's fitting in, or
Right,
problems
right.
with the father or things like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, Toothless is a little
Well,
different.
you have here, Jamie, they have a secret pain. The secret pain is like
Mm-hmm.
the reveal of why the dragons steal sheep.
Yep.
Yep.
Isn't that the secret pain?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're scared. Yeah.
They're scared. They got to feed this giant dragon to not be killed themselves. So,
Mhm.
right. Number 6. We wish we were more like them.
I mean,
Let me read the subheadings before we get into it.
Yep.
Just for this one. They're self-sacrificing, generous, resourceful, loyal, smartest person in the room, overcome their fears, never give up, cut through the BS, live by an honorable code.
I mean, they definitely never give up. Definitely overcoming the fear of humans. Definitely
Mhm.
clever, as we see over and over. Definitely loyal to Hiccup, and that's enough.
And because they can't talk, there's no BS.
Right, there's no BS.
There's no BS out of the sheer nature of the fact they can't
That's
speak.
true.
So,
That's true. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think it tracks. Number 6. I think you feel all of that.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
it does. 7. They're just like us.
I think
This is a little bit. He's
they're
kind. Toothless is kind.
Yeah.
like
and
they're like our
distrusting.
cat. So
Yeah.
they feel
Yeah.
like they're just like our cat.
Mhm.
I don't know if that tracks, but you feel that.
You could argue Toothless wants the same things. To be loved, to be cared
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
be treated with respect.
All those things. Yep.
All those things. They want safety, comfort. Just the
Right.
general things anyone wants.
And the thing about the rooting resume is not all of these have to be checked, just some of them.
No.
Yeah.
And like every time we bring up rooting resumes, we find, especially when we like track the film for, there's another one, you find, and I'm sure if we did this, especially with Hiccup, you'd find just sometimes dozens of moments of why you
Every
root for
scene
them.
is just filled with a different version of this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Well, the
Just
last one,
reinforcing our love for the our deep
Right.
interest. Yeah.
the last one I think is actually, for both Hiccup and Toothless, the most notable for me. Number 8, they're the best at something.
Mhm.
The Night Fury is by far the most standout dragon
Mhm.
of the dragons. There's something special about them.
Mhm.
They look different. They seem to be the most powerful as far as like
Mhm.
his whatever you call his fire breathing thing, whatever that is, the shot he makes,
Mhm.
But then you throw the Hiccup. Hiccup is this inventor,
Also
and he
the
does
best at something. Yes.
Yeah, like maybe Gobber and him probably share the same levels, but he's obviously unique among his people.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
But Toothless is very unique among the dragons, right?
And they in that way they do respect it. The village does respect the dragon. They fear its respect.
They fear the Night Fury more than
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
dragons.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like Jamie said, this doesn't need to fit. You don't need to fit all 8 of these, but Toothless kind of does.
Yes, when I was watching, I was like, there's got to be a great rooting resume here if we went down and tracked it, like, because we did this for the Gremlins and we did this for Gizmo, on the Gremlins episode, and both of them Gizmo had a great rooting resume, and Gizmo barely speaks, and the Gremlins had a great inverted, instead of love animals, they hate animals, instead of, knowing their secret pain, they're just like blank evil like monsters. So yeah, I think this is
You can
just
do
a powerful
you can do the inverse or whatever. What did you call it? The inverse rooting resume?
Yeah, you
for
do.
Villains?
You check them. You check some of them on the opposite of these, and it makes for great villains.
Stoic might fit a few inverse ones at
Mhm.
first.
Yep,
He's not a
definitely.
villain, but he would probably fit a few inverse.
Definitely.
You know,
And then the
it's
evolution.
interesting about this movie is it doesn't really have a villain. I don't know if I consider the big dragon a villain.
It's like a late breaking villain.
It's more of an obstacle. It's
yeah.
more of a thing.
Antagonist is still Stoic is the antagonist, but
Yeah,
not,
kind of.
villain isn't the right way to put.
No, it's not the right word.
Yeah, which is cool and subversive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun and games and the midpoint.
Yeah. So this is something a little different. And this comes from that interview. So I saw the interview and this came up and I thought it was an interesting thing to talk about. We've kind of hit this before, but it's the, so they said when they were working on the story, they had this idea, they had this new wrinkle to save the cat that they kind of mixed in. And it actually it's something I've talked about here. And I came up with the wrinkle kind of organically myself many years ago. And it's kind of a fun and games midpoint. Now, they got it from Michael Arndt, the writer of Little Miss Sunshine, and he was working on Toy Story 3. He was writing Toy Story 3 when they were doing Lilo and Stitch. And he talked about something he liked to do called the page 45 reveal. That's what he called it. And for him, 45 was kind of the middle of the acts if it was a 2-hour movie. So it was kind of like if you had a 3-act structure and you split Act 2 into Act 2A and 2B. So you have Act 1 and then 2A goes to the midpoint and then 2B goes from the midpoint to the end to the finale, Act 3, and then Act 3 is the final pages. What he was suggesting, this page 45 reveal, or what I like to call the fun and games midpoint, is to almost add another beat in the middle of the fun and games section of the Save the Cat beat sheet. So the Save the Cat beat sheet, the fun and games appears. It's basically the start of Act 2 all the way to the midpoint. It's this huge chunk that people get lost in because it's such a big section. It's like they set everything up, they put the hero on the quest, and then they have to write 30 pages, of the quest. And we've talked about it before. Some people get confused by this beat and write like a montage, and it's just a montage. And you could see like an amateur writer handed this assignment that might do that. It would just be a montage of training Hiccup. Training Toothless, and mixed with a montage of the dragon fighting training, and do that for like 2 pages. And then I'm like, what do I do next? I'm done. That's trained. This happens. I'm at my midpoint. So what this suggests is maybe split your fun and games up into 2 halves itself. Split that. So if you're kind of at 2A, you have 2A1 and 2A2 or something. Not to get too complicated.
I get it.
And they did that with this. And I think I was trying to figure out, because in the interview they didn't say what their midpoint was, but to me, when I watched it, I watched it with this in mind. I think it's what they also call the Black Stallion moment, when he actually touches its nose. It's kind of in the middle of the fun and games. It's like stuff starts to happen, and then when he touches, when they have that touching moment, that kind of shifts things into a new gear. Now they're kind of working on the same team. Now he's got some trust, and they're really forward focused. And then the actual midpoint is the flying scene. So it kind of gets separated into these 2 sections. The first section has more doubt, and then I think in the second section they're kind of getting to know each other. They're sizing each other up. And then the second section, after the Black Stallion moment, it's more like they work as a little bit more as a team. They're trying to get through this thing together, and it just splits that fun and games up enough so that you have like 2 sections that you can work on, and you can approach it different, not just get lost in the montage. On this podcast, and in some of my books, at the workbook at least, I have this thing called the 5-point fun and games. And the 5-point fun and games does a similar thing. Like when I rate my fun and games, I use the 5-point fun and games. And just to summarize what the 5-point fun and games is, because it's really the same thing, I kind of turn it into 2 missions. If you're looking from the hero perspective, I turn it into 2 missions. And maybe the first mission in this case would be get Toothless on my side for the hero. And maybe the second mission is get Toothless to fly. So it's kind of like 2 different missions that get separated. And the 5 points, there's gather the team. There's so you gather the team as planning. It could be, making a sketch or kind of observing or kind of coming up with a plan. The next thing, or gathering people. In this case, it's not gathering people, but it's the preparation phase. The second step is the execution of the plan. And that's where it gets a little montagey and stretches out. We see the montage happen. But then there's the surprise. It doesn't go, it's the Hightower surprise. It doesn't go as planned. Something happens and there's a readjustment. Now, in this case, I'm not sure that the surprise happens quite in that way. It's more like a positive surprise. It's like some positive spin that then there's a new mission. And then maybe that's about the flying and the wing and all that, and the construction and training for flying and practicing flying. That might be the second section of it. And then it goes through another cycle of 5 points that ultimately ends in the midpoint. And then that shifts it in another direction as well. Because once they fly, now what? What happens now? So anyway, it's also, I know I stumbled upon this, like, I'm not sure if I just did this myself. Like, I was always like, we need one more beat. Fun and games is just too big, And I think Sid Field had a thing called a pinch point, which kind of happened in the same spot. It happened there, and it happens in the middle of the bad guys close in kind of section, or it might be around the all is lost. But anyway, I kind of stumbled upon it. I was like, the fun and games needs one more beat to help us out. And if you can think of it and kind of just put a midpoint, a fun and games midpoint, I like to call it, right in the middle, it might help you plan out your fun and games section.
Yeah, I love that. That's definitely when I'm consulting on scripts. The fun and games section is, like you said, it's where people sort of they don't do enough. They don't have enough fun.
I think it can be a side effect, a downside of a Save the Cat beat sheet, because the entire fun and games section, which is like 30 pages long, gets the same weight as like Catalyst debate. And I think sometimes people get lost in that. So they're in a hurry to get to the midpoint, which is their next cool thing. It's like they're in the fun and games and they can either stretch it or cut it really short. And that's what I usually see is they stretch. There's not enough material there to last 30 pages. So it gets stretched or overstuffed with B story or side quests or whatever kind of thing they do. And then they hit the midpoint, where instead you want to give a trajectory. You want to give your hero a goal and have them try to execute the goal, but throw a surprise at them, twist it around, have the goal don't go exactly as planned, or maybe it goes spectacular, moves them to another goal. And then that leads to the midpoint.
Yeah, that's awesome. Super helpful. Imagine the Ghostbusters fun and games section where the ballroom hunt for Slimer is just a montage and not like that extended figuring things out, messing things up scene where we watch them figuring out how to be Ghostbusters. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It was like instantly they're good.
Yeah. Imagine if you didn't have that. Really what I see is you don't have that section.
Yeah.
And you just skip to that part, the montage part, where it's like people are playing music, they're doing their thing,
Casey Kasem's talking about them.
Yeah, exactly. And they skip the part before that. So instead of 2 parts, it's just 1 part. And it usually isn't enough. And it's usually like they end up 10 pages short. And they have no idea. I've had a lot of clients and stuff just stuck there. They have no idea what to do. They're like, yeah, I don't know.
5-point fun and games. That's all.
5 point fun and games. 5 point fun and games.
And if you're gonna montage, do it after your fun and games midpoint.
There you go.
I'm trying to simplify what you're saying.
Or sometimes you do it before, like
Yes, you can do it before.
Rocky might do it before or something. I don't know. You know, you might have like a little training montage, and then you might do like, okay, now he's trained, he's in the zone, but something happens, he gets injured or something, whatever. I don't know. But sometimes it happens right before, and sometimes it happens right after. Or sometimes
I mean, that's good.
A montage at all.
No, it must have a montage.
This movie has a couple montages.
It's got like 10 of them, and they're all great.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fun and games, part of this section is, I would say, the most notable part of the movie, maybe the first flight. If anything, it's probably the part of the score that people recognize the most. That whole section of score is like iconic now. But we've talked about the good news, bad news technique on this show. Indiana Jones, Solo, Willow, all, those type of movies all
Guardians
have
of
something
the
very
Galaxy has a good one.
Guardians, yep. Those all, and all those tracks that, did I do all those, or I think I might have.
Did.
But all those had something in common, which was it was usually about a chase scene or a fight scene. I did the Killer too. The Killer was a fight scene.
Yes.
They all had somebody that they had an antagonist that they were fighting with. I thought I'd track this first flight scene, and I thought it was interesting just because they're not fighting. They're fighting the ability to learn and fly. There's no other.
Awesome.
Right. There's no. That's like the biggest kind of fulfillment scene in the movie, and there's it has nothing to do with a villain or an antagonist or a fight or anything. So I tracked the good news, bad news, and the idea behind this is if you want to write good action, right? Like, was that you guys got to remind me of the origin of the good news, bad news?
It's a I believe it's a Ted Elliott, Terry Rossio thing. It's a word player that we quote a lot,
that we picked up.
It's like you go to a blank page, you got an action scene, whatever scene, and a lot of times we read scripts from aspiring screenwriters that are just kind of like a flat line, like it doesn't get more things, or it's all good news, right?
If you're just going in there and you're The Rock is just beating the shit out of everyone, and it's not supposed to be funny.
You're right.
Like you know what I mean? It's like a serious action movie where he just beats shit out of everyone. It's not very interesting.
Yeah,
I've read a lot of those, by the way. I've read a lot of those, and it's kind of a common flaw in action that people don't realize. That's not how it works. It's like, two bad guys come up, bang bang, they're dead. Now two more, bang bang, they're dead. It's just like
the I think it's the 5th and 6th Fast and Furious movie do it where where him and Jason Statham kind of don't get hurt at all, but that's like the joke,
right? It's supposed to be
they're
funny.
So macho that it's supposed to be for comedy.
Yeah,
so it's different than just doing it as a straightforward thing.
Right. I'm not sure. Like Commando, did he ever get? He was pretty much just like
Commando has a little bit of that. Yeah. Like he doesn't get knocked down much, but Commando has its own charms.
Yeah.
Right. But I would say, like, if you're interested in this technique, Lawrence Kasdan, any movie that he's involved with, and Spielberg is kind of the master of execution with this. Ron Howard would be the other one. Watch any of their movies and you'll find this in spades. Okay, so this is the good news, bad news of the first flight. It's not that long. So starts out, good news. After much practice and perfecting the tail attachment, Hiccup and Toothless are finally airborne with written instructions for Hiccup in hand. He's actually got a piece of paper. Bad news. They're having trouble steering and slamming into giant rock formations. Good news. They regain control and start ascending into the clouds. Bad news. Hiccup's instructions fly loose from their clip, and as Hiccup lunges for them, his harness comes unhooked, and both of them are now falling towards the earth. Good news. Hiccup catches the instructions and then grabs Toothless's saddle and rehooks himself in place. Bad news. They are going so fast downward, they're going to crash. Good news. Toothless slows them down using his entire wingspan, which is very taxing
Yes.
on Toothless. Bad news. Hiccup stares at his flapping instructions confused and has to immediately make decisions or they're actually going to crash. Good news. Hiccup says, fuck it. Not really. He doesn't actually say fuck it. Hiccup tosses the instructions and in the moment decides to steer Toothless on mutual instincts between them, guiding them through an extremely dangerous maze of rocks. They now know how to fly. And the final one is for comedic effect. A bad news. Toothless celebrates by shooting a fireball ahead of them, which explodes into a cloud of flames, and Hiccup has to endure the heat.
That's so great.
Yeah, it's not
was
that
an
big of a
awesome
scene.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's back and forth. The whole thing is back. When I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, well, this is, I just like couldn't help but notice it's back and forth, back and forth.
I didn't even notice it now until you pointed it out. That explains.
Yeah, no, it's not just them. It would be easy for them to have everything up until that point, and then they're in the air and they just have a beautiful, fun flying scene. But that's not what happens. Once they get airborne, they still need to go through this trial.
It's a gripping scene for all those reasons that you just said.
It is, yeah. Yeah, so good news, bad news.
I love when you do that.
Flat arc. Are we talking about Hiccup or just in general?
Yeah, Hiccup's flat arc.
Yeah.
So, well, I propose that he has a flat arc. So
right.
The idea here for a flat arc is let me define flat arc. A flat arc is when a hero doesn't change what they believe at the core. They really don't change internally at the core. Instead, they kind of change the world around them. And usually the world's trying to change them. The world is like, you need to change. I think there's even a line in the beginning. What does he say? He says, all of you needs to change.
Yeah, I got that on the list later. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, you have to change all of it or whatever, all of you or whatever. And so it just kind of triggers, like that's almost in a weird sort of way, the theme stated, but it's in reverse. It's like, it's kind of a fake out because he's not the one that needs to change. The world needs to change. And everybody, his peers are trying to change him. The adults are trying to change them. Everybody except maybe Toothless is trying to change them. And even to an extent, the dragons are trying to change him through their attacks and stuff like that he misinterprets. But everything in the world points to that he's the problem and he's actually the solution. And then even when he starts having success, they're still kind of trying to change him. They're still rolling their eyes a little bit. They're still,
they're like, you're not using violence.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And then there's always the danger that he's going to get outed as harboring this dragon. That's the other thing. So he has to hide it because he's so scared that, he's doing the wrong thing. The world looks at him like he's doing the wrong thing. And that's what a flat arc is. And ultimately what happens in a flat arc is they change the world. And that's what happens here. A dragon changes the view of humans. Dragons in general start to work with humans. And of course, the Vikings completely changed their view of dragons by the end of the story. So he holds strong all the way to the end, even when there's an all is lost, that his father basically is ashamed of him and kind of,
disowns him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he still holds true, even after that, even though everything he's done up to that point drives him to be disowned, he still holds true. And in the end, he wins over the world, saves the day, and defeats the real nemesis, the giant dragon or whatever that's in there. So it's a really good example of a flat arc, I think.
I was going to say it's almost one of the best examples whenever we talk, because we talked about this. We've mentioned the character. Superman is obviously the one we always mention.
Legally Blonde.
But I feel like this movie so explicitly and vividly is like the world hardcore changes by the end of this movie. You know what I mean? It's like just so obvious the world is different. It's not like implied or anything. It's just, no, it's different.
And the one thing in this movie that kind of happens is he goes from an unconfident character. He's not sure he's right.
Yes.
to one that is confident.
That's
in
what
the
I
end.
wanted to ask you, Jamie, because he does have a false belief but it changes
Maybe he's
so
wrong.
early.
Mhm.
He is worried that
You
he
could say
has
it's a
to.
doubt, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he has a doubt that his way is like the moral, like he
I feel like it's a confirmation of what he knows already.
yes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
he's not changing. It's just a
It's
validation of
the events are validating that
Yeah.
he was
yeah.
going the right way. Yeah.
I think he's trying to turn himself into the dragon
Yes.
killer, but he just can't do
So
it.
the wrong way is conformity.
Yeah.
This is all going to blend nicely to
Right. The wrong way is
Right,
conformity.
right.
Yep. Everybody else is conforming. Everybody else is changing all of them to be part of the thing.
Yes.
And he doesn't change all of them. He makes the world change to
Yeah.
fit, whatever. He kind of opens their eyes that that's not needed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think there's like the hint of an arc in these flat arc movies for the most part, where they go from unsure, unconfident, and maybe even thinking they're wrong to an extent, and they learn they're right. And whether or not that's an arc, you could say that's an arc, or whether or not that's just confidence
I feel
and trust who they are. It's
when we talk
it's
about this, I always say it's a matter of new information versus
Yes.
changing. I feel like it's validation is new information. I feel like
That's good.
learning that he was right isn't changing who he is. It's just, hey, this is the new data.
You know what? This is right, and now we have to make the society right. So
Right.
yeah, because it's like
It's
once that shift happens, you feel the movie shift into now he's in arc of awesome mode, and he's now his sort of place in the world is to make everyone else aware that they're going about this all wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, it's the weird thing is, like, sometimes my test of arcs, there's two things that come up. Like when I've done consulting, there's two things that come up. So I'll go with the first thing first. And I always ask the question, would they have done the thing they did in the end, in the beginning of the movie? Could they have done it? In this case, it's a little questionable because he wasn't sure that dragons were good, or
Right.
he learns that along the way.
Yeah.
So
once again, that's information.
Information, right. New awareness. Yeah.
he was willing
Yeah.
to accept it. Like, he wasn't so, like, he was open to the idea. He couldn't kill the innocent dragon, but in the beginning he couldn't kill a dragon, and in the end he couldn't kill a dragon.
Yeah.
So in that way,
Yeah.
he's kind of the same.
And
The
they
other-
they even debate that topic. Astrid like asks him why. Yeah.
Yep, you're right. And the other thing that comes up a lot when I'm consulting or giving notes is, I give this note a lot. Like, sometimes people that don't do a flat arc have arcs that happen at the beginning of Act 2. The character arcs at the beginning of Act 2, and the arc is over. So that's like the, not this, but that's something I see happen, where it's like, imagine if he did arc. Imagine if his arc was, I hate dragons, I'm going to kill dragons. And then literally at the beginning of Act 2, he's like, I like dragons. I see that happen a lot too.
You're saying
not a
if
good way.
in a different script,
Yeah.
if Hiccup almost went from like who he
Astrid.
is now, well, Astrid, I was going to say
basically.
I was going to say basically stoic. He
Yes.
wants to be his father, and then he's like,
Yeah.
oh wait, I don't want
Right.
this at all.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
the
But
gotcha.
I see that happen. Not a ton, but I see it happen. I see that happen a lot.
That's not bad. I don't think that's
It's
good. I mean, it's a viable technique, right?
It's not really that viable. The reason it's not viable is because then you don't have an arc, really. There's nothing left to do. Because they changed too early. So it's like, it happens so early that there's no story left to tell there.
Yeah.
It's a dead end.
The movie is a down is it just loses steam after that instead of picking up.
Usually it becomes all plot, to be honest. Like, it's like, okay, now they're a team and they do plot things. They don't, because there's nothing to learn from each other. It's just plot stuff. They go on a quest to kill the dragon.
You mean if him and Astrid were the same?
Yeah. If they were kind of that. Right. Well, if the arc changes too fast, if they now, could you do a story like this, like Braveheart? Not to get too deep here, but Braveheart Braveheart, I think,
It's a great comp.
is one that arc. There's an arc that happens early because it's over a span of time, and he changes, and then the rest of the movie becomes a flat arc. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like
Okay.
that's kind of how Braveheart works in
Okay.
some ways. It's like he arcs in the beginning. He becomes kind of saintly in some ways, in his own, in the old twisted Mel Gibson-y sort of way. He becomes perfect to who he is, and then he dies for it at the end. He literally gets killed, but that's the flat arc of it, where he lives by a code so hard he sacrifices himself, and the
Also,
world
by the middle of the
changes.
movie, he's teaching other people. Like, he already knows the truth, and
Right.
he's teaching them.
That's what I mean. Like his
Yeah.
arc is the beginning when not to break down Braveheart, but doesn't his wife get killed or something? She gets killed, and he gets revenge and stuff like. But then he learns a bigger picture, and he's kind of arced within the first third of the movie, and then it becomes a flat arc. That's a little different.
At the beginning of the movie, he's a civilian, and it turns him into a revolutionary.
Yeah, and it's a true story, so that you're kind of showing, like, it's almost like a prologue in some ways, and of how he became the person he became. I can't say any of the clients I'm talking about that I ever saw this problem were trying to do that. They just didn't realize. They were like, "Oh, I guess they don't have an arc, or they arced on page 25, and it really doesn't." So then
you could argue that
it doesn't work.
The revenge aspect of Braveheart also carries the difficulty of what you're talking about.
It does.
The audience wants him to eventually face the person who killed his wife, or those that ruined his life.
Yeah.
I feel like that carries the movie a lot.
It's almost like if you took 3 How to Train Your Dragon, all 3 movies, like the first 3, and packed them in, into one movie, you'd probably have Act 1 be this movie in some ways,
Yeah.
And then the world would be the way it was, and then you had to start from there.
Two has a villain, and he's already knows how to fly, so that's not. There's no training, really.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway,
there is. But
so now we don't have to do Braveheart.
It's done.
Right, done.
Off the list.
Mark that off your list.
Apocalypto we'll do,
because that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to get rid of movies. It's about quantity.
We're gonna kill like 5 movies with one. What can we say about Lilo and Stitch here?
Yeah, right. Just get it out of the way. God, cross it off. Well, that flows in nicely to when society is the villain.
Yeah, that's why I put it there. So yeah, this is a topic we've done to death. But it shows why. I mean, it's a very prevalent writing technique in your favorite movies. So this is a lot of times, like How to Train Your Dragon, society is the villain. The whole movie is, an exercise in basically changing the society so it no longer, mistreats the character and people in the world like the character. So, and sometimes the society doesn't learn, but we learn, and so when society is the villain, then you need to put faces on that societal ill. You need to give us a wide variety of people who represent how this societal ill is hurting the society and the people in it. And some examples we've done in the past. Immortan Joe in Fury Road is the face of barbarian, warmongering, dictatorship, patriarchy. Mayor Larry Vaughn in Jaws is the face of profits over people and pleasure over safety in Jaws. All of the antagonists in League of Their Own are the face of misogyny and placing limitations on women based on their gender, or anyone based on their gender. And specifically in that movie, though, it's women. And most recently, we did it in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I mean, that was my favorite one because it was so heavy, and Santa was such a fucking asshole that it was really shocking. He's wearing a deer hat.
And Santa, man, in that movie.
And this movie is very similar to Rudolph in this aspect of its craft about conformity. That was the many faces of societal conformity. So other previous episodes, if you have a script that you're realizing now, oh shit, society is the villain of my movie, and I need to do something about that to make sure it pops. Some other examples that we've done in the past, I said Jaws already, Barbie, Alien, Aliens, Star Wars, Legally Blonde, Die Hard, Doctor Sleep, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Demolition Man, Mad Max Fury Road, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So we've done this a lot, and it's very impactful.
Do we ever do the Truman Show? We didn't do the Truman
We
Show.
didn't do
did
the
we?
Truman Show yet. No.
God, I can't. How
There's
can I not
so many
remember things?
greats, dude.
Yeah,
We're on 100. We're on episode 139. It's
I-
easy to remember.
You know, I have a Mandela effect. I thought we did the Truman Show.
I thought we did the Truman Show.
No, dude.
How did I forget?
Yeah, I can't believe we. I sort of remember what I said. Even
Maybe we talked about it.
I'm sure we've referenced
We've talked
it
about it, but
in
not. But
the
society is
100
definitely the villain. in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in this
in
case,
2 ways. Yeah.
So in this case, the ill is basically like violent conformity, choosing violence over compassion, and really violence over curiosity. Like nobody's curious at all except for Hiccup. Like Hiccup,
I would say hate over curiosity.
yeah, it's hatred and fear which leads to violence.
Right.
Over curiosity and compassion. Like, and that extends to just curiosity and compassion about Hiccup himself, right?
Right.
Like everybody's like, you're not a killer. So it's
They
funny,
discount
like,
him for his size and
his size or his interests, and you like remember when
in the live action remake they remove the size aspect because
Okay.
the guy playing Hiccup is not that. He's like a normal sized person.
Gotcha.
So they go way more with him being an outcast with his interests.
Okay.
They had to remove that. But in this movie, it's much more like, look at his father, look at him.
Yes, the contrast that's also
Of their
helpful.
of their bodies. Yeah.
I almost put a talking point just about how this movie uses contrast, just simply to like do it to make us feel. Everything is always contrast. You've got Gobber, who is missing a hand and a leg, next to Stoic, who's like physically perfect and a beast. They're like, circus mirrors of each other, physically, I mean. So anyway, so I wanted to go kind of break down very simply how this movie makes everybody a face of this societal ill. And Stoic the Vast, obviously, he's like the leader of the institution, and he's a parent. So just like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, it's like Santa Claus and Donner combined into one.
The worst human alive.
So the face of the institution and the face of the parental influence, saying you have to be violent, you have to hate these things, you have to conform, all three of those. And then
he's the ideal human of that society,
right?
Stoic the Vast,
right? Couldn't be more opposite of Hiccup,
right? Hiccup, right.
To another contrast, Gobber, he's the teacher, right? He's their head teacher, and he's telling stories about dragons ripping off his hand, and like telling all the they'll always go for the kill, and like the only good dragon is a dead dragon. And
he's literally the kids movie version of Michael Ironside from Starship Troopers. Like he's like, you want to live forever, but
yeah,
and he's got he's got
of that.
He's got an arm off and everything. He's like, this is what we do. I mean, Gobber's a little bit nicer and understanding than that, but it's the kids movie version.
No, it totally is. I love that Michael Ironside in Starship Troopers is the same as Gobber in How to Train Your Dragon. Okay, the teen recruits, like the trainees, they are the faces of peers, putting that societal pressure on Hiccup to be violent, to be hateful, to conform. So there's his peers, the faces of his peers,
the literal fanboys of the society.
Yes. in every way too.
In
Like,
every yeah, like one of them is literally a D&D fanboy of this
yeah.
society, right?
The village elders, they're the cultural, the
Yeah.
elders are watching, and who are the elders going to choose? The village elders are the cultural face of the, be violent, be hateful, conform. So the movie, and then it's like systematically, Hiccup teaches Hiccup and Toothless, because I think Toothless is just as much an agent of change, an arc of awesome, as Hiccup is. They're kind of like one collective agent of change once they're working together. And systematically, because Astrid and because we have faces to this societal ill, it's easy to feel how the society is changing. And it goes, first Astrid changes, then the trainees change, then Gobber changes, then Dad changes. They all they do it a domino effect. They take their time. They don't just do one fell swoop in the story. It's like we get a beat for each one of these faces. Suddenly the peers are trusting the dragon.
Yeah.
Then the teacher's trusting the dragon. Then Stoic is trusting the dragon. Then the entire village is trusting the dragon. So they do it systematically and very strategically from a storytelling.
And they bring each other along with them. Like I feel
Yes.
like Gobber helps Stoic move a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yes. So it really stuck out. And if you have a script that is that you understand, society is the villain of my script. This is a good example. Rudolph's a good example. The other ones I've listed are good examples to kind of get inspiration of how you can put a face on that ill and like use those faces to show the audience how the society is changing, or to show the audience, if it's a tragedy, how society will never change. Right? Like Dennis Quaid in The Substance.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, The Substance kind of ends on this is going to keep happening.
The gory end, right? Like explodes. She literally like.
Well, her dying on the star.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not going to stop. Probably.
Yep. So.
Yeah. Okay, repetition. We've talked about this a lot lately.
Yeah,
I feel like
this is one of my pull strings. I'm only going to do 3 examples for this one because there's a ton of them. I'm not going to talk about the, there's the occupational hazard dialogue repetition. I'm not going to talk about that. There's 3 or 4 big uses of repetition that I'm not going to talk about. So what this is the reason I bring this up a lot on the show is because this is something that the pros are doing, and they're doing it often. And it's the reason that like Hollywood cheeseburger movies, and I would argue even not Hollywood cheeseburger, we've done plenty of mini plot movies that use repetition too. But it's the reason that you're able to track the emotional beats of the story. So repetition gives us before and after snapshots and sometimes middle beats to track how a character is growing and changing, or a character is regressing, or a relationship is growing and changing, or regressing, and even in the case of this, how a society as a whole is growing and changing. So I wanted to give some examples of repetition in this movie, and often it can come in the form of, usually it's dialogue and scenario combined. It's not just a line, it's a dialogue and a specific scenario. So I'll give a couple. You just pointed to all of me. You just gestured to all of me. Jamie referenced this earlier. It's sort of like a growing understanding of Hiccup and the other, right? So first, the setup, the before snapshot is Gobber mocks Hiccup, and he says that line that Jamie referenced before. If you ever want to get out there to fight dragons, you need to stop all of this. And he says, you just pointed to all of me. And he's like, right. Yes, that's it. Stop all of you. So that's the setup. And then it's reinforced. It's repeated. The middle beat of that is Stoic then does the same thing a couple scenes later to Hiccup. He says, no more of, and he just gestures to Hiccup non-specifically, no more of this. And Hiccup says, you just gestured to all of me. And then in the third act, after everything has changed and Stoic has changed, he says to Hiccup, he says, turns out all we needed was a little more of, and gestures to Hiccup and says, this.
So,
and then Hiccup
Yeah.
says, you just gestured to all of me. So they use the exact same thing. And
Yeah.
that same gesture grows to have a completely different meaning because we've been able to track the growth and change. So another one is this is like one of my favorite things in the movie. It does a lot of these, and I didn't list them all. They do kind of like simple scenario bookends where they sort of have a snapshot of a little portion of the relationship, a before snapshot and an after snapshot. And one of my favorite ones in the movie is the before snapshot. It's like human contact. Hiccup finds, it's like compassion. Hiccup finds Toothless injured and weak, and Hiccup basically admits he shows compassion once he locks eyes with Toothless, and he shows compassion for Toothless, and he says, I did this, right? Then in the end, they repeat that scenario, except now it's Stoic. So Stoic, the pose is identical. You find Stoic finds Toothless on the ground, eyes closed, injured, and the exact same thing happens. He comes up, and Toothless opens his eyes and locks eyes with Stoic, and Stoic now has compassion, and he admits guilt, takes accountability, and he says, I did this. And then the villagers walk up right after that, and they also show compassion. And then the dragons walk behind them, and now they're all showing compassion together. And it's just beautiful. Like, nothing needs to be said. And that's like a great example of how to use repetition to show the audience how the world has changed.
You can also argue too that the scene after that is part of the same but different repetition, is that he wakes up missing a piece of his body.
Yes.
And the person who's there is Hiccup. Or, I mean, is Toothless. Because that's kind of what
Yeah,
happened.
Absolutely. That's a bookend of his missing tail fin.
Right.
Yes.
And I know that you're still talking on this point, but I have one interesting note on this that's script based.
Go for it.
This is a DreamWorks movie. The director showed it, the original cut, the original idea, to Steven Spielberg. And Spielberg gave them the note that at the end, Hiccup, he originally woke up by himself in that hut. Whoa. And he walks out of the hut alone, and eventually then Toothless is there. And Spielberg gave them the note that Toothless should be there for them to have that intimate moment together, because that is what the movie is.
Yes.
So Spielberg changed basically the script that Toothless needs to be. They need to have that moment together of Hiccup discovering his leg.
And he created that bookend then, because
he created the bookend.
Yeah, because Hiccup
Spielberg knows his shit.
Because he knows his shit. Hiccup, the power of rewriting, right? Like, Hiccup helps Toothless, who's missing a piece of the tail fin, aids him, and then Toothless helps Hiccup, who's missing a leg. That's a perfect poetic.
That's a story that was told by Dean DeBlois on something I watched.
That's awesome.
And then Spielberg also in Paranormal Activity said, show the monster in the end. Have her turn into a demon and roar at the camera.
Look, we did Crystal Skull. The man can make mistakes. He is mortal. Okay.
Yeah. I was about to go into Paranormal Activity, but I won't. Different podcast.
We don't have to do that one now either.
Yeah, we did it. Done.
Off the list.
Done. So anyway, this movie is another very easy to learn from if you're out there and you want to learn how to use repetition in your own scripts. How to Train Your Dragon has several uses of this in different ways. Sometimes there's just dialogue. Sometimes there's no dialogue and just scenario, like we said, with the tail fin and then the missing leg. And then sometimes it's a combo.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a storm. That's a storm brewing. We're going to try to
coming. Another
finish this
Terminator now.
We better finish this episode before we lose power.
That's what happens when you say something bad about Spielberg.
It's so rare that I say anything negative about Spielberg.
The
Come
cinema
on.
gods are going to retaliate.
Someone yelled at me online yesterday for saying AI was a masterpiece. So whatever. I was defending him. Okay. Anyway, AI the movie, not the
Yeah,
concept of AI.
I understand. What
To be clear.
Yeah, I
Maybe
understand.
maybe they were confused.
Yeah, maybe. I don't
They
know.
were like, it's the downfall of humanity.
I'm like, no, it's a good
masterpiece.
Jude Law's performance is incredible.
Gigolo
Yeah,
Joe.
Gigolo Joe. What do you know? Anyway, we should do AI at some point.
Oh yeah.
We just did it.
We
Done.
just did it
done.
off the list. Premise pretzels.
Okay, this is also mine. Okay, Jamie, can you set up premise pretzels for the listeners, and then I'll give some examples.
Yes. So a premise pretzel, it's kind of a concept that Jimmy and I kind of came up with, or at least the name of it. It's a technique where it's kind of an advanced setup payoff technique, I'd say, where the writer twists and then retwists kind of this core setup idea, and you keep bending it into shapes, new shapes that kind of surprise the audience. You're a little creative with it.
Balloon animal of payoff.
The balloon animal payoff or whatever. And each time you kind of bend it back on itself and kind of look at it, we're all getting the storm. So you keep
Yeah,
hearing
so you're gonna hear some weird sounds.
we're all getting it from our different locations. So
it's making this fun episode super ominous.
And it's a really weird storm in that it's like constant, like ominous dread thunder. It's not like big ones. It's just like
it's a shame we're not doing a horror movie.
Yeah. I know. It's a happy, fun
movie. It's like storming.
A joyous experience.
And that's the fun in games.
You're right.
So anyway, it's a kind of a setup payoff that keeps twisting in on itself. And you just keep something you keep reusing or calling back to in new and inventive ways. And I think one of the examples, one of the easy ones that I always remember is Predator, where kind of Arnold's hunted in the beginning. The Predator is using his lack of, the Predator can see Arnold in the dark and he's setting traps and stuff like that. And then later on, Arnold uses that against the Predator. He uses things. And some movies even do then another twist, like it'll be something else where they're both hunting together. Or, I don't know. It could be anything. And that's basically what a premise pretzel is. It's kind of a setup payoff thing.
Yeah, one setup. I'm waiting for the more thunder. Many payoffs. Yeah, so the reason, the idea here is that you want to keep reusing your existing ideas in this. You want to be efficient with your ideas, and a lot of times in the script, someone will have a cool idea that I'm working with, and there's so much more they could do with it later down the road in the story. And then usually in the rewrites, you end up figuring out, we could take this idea and we could do a premise pretzel and we can do something else cool with it. And we could do something else cool with it. And it's smart to consolidate when you get into the later drafts and try to take something that's cool and reuse it in a new, different way in the script. So that's the idea here. And a lot of the scripts I'm reading from aspiring screenwriters are not doing that. So this one, I only wanted to give one example. It's like a whiteboard for one idea. And my favorite episode we did this with was the Batman Returns episode. And we did the whiteboard for the Penguin's umbrella.
Right.
And like all the different ways the movie just uses the umbrella. There's like 10 different cool things that happen with the umbrella, just the umbrella. So that's what we're saying here. So in this case, I wanted to talk about fish legs dragon expertise. It is also a comedic obsession, which we're not really going to go into, but they took that comedic obsession, which is a technique of itself, and then they didn't just make it like a throwaway thing. They used it. So
Fish Legs is the McLovin
Is the
character, right?
McLovin character. He's got
Yeah, okay.
dragon expertise. He's got the encyclopedic knowledge.
The D&D,
the D&D
the D&D
guy, right?
stats, right? Yeah.
So like first they just use it for comedy. It's always used for comedy, but it becomes important.
Yeah, it becomes useful.
He's the dragon nerd. When you meet him, he's just like rambling them off, like while like they're getting attacked by dragons. He's just rambling off the like dragon stats. And then the next time he starts, the next time they use it is to kind of bury exposition with a joke. They're always using it to bury exposition with a joke, really. But like, this is how we learn there's like classifications of dragons, and we learn about the manual, which becomes important to Hiccup's mission. And the first twist is using it as an expositional scene that helps us easily swallow. Oh, there's like a lore, there's a manual, and there's the classifications. Now Hiccup's going to use that to help him understand how to get Toothless on his side. So then the third way, go ahead.
Dragons don't just look different.
Yeah,
they are different within their own species.
Without
him, I don't know if we would get that.
Yes, it's our easily digestible way into all of that.
Yeah.
And then so the third time is when they're fighting. This is hilarious.
I can't tell if it's coming from like above me or if it's from my headphones. I can't tell.
It's like shaking my house.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's dragon's breath.
Yeah.
So the third time, Fish Legs he's like a tactical expert during one of their training battles against the Red Death. He's like, it's got small eyes, large nostrils, relies on hearing and smell. Like it's gonna make a sneak attack through the smoke. It's got a heavily armed skull and tail made for bashing and crashing. And then the strategy fails because they twist it again. He doesn't have all the knowledge we think he has. He's like, oh shit. They twist that pretzel again, and it gets them in trouble because he doesn't know everything that we thought he knew. Then it twists again in the finale. He goes from book nerd to like hero because his expertise becomes crucial for the final battle. And it's how Hiccup creates a strategy in order for them to succeed. So they twist that pretzel again, and it's not just a joke, it's very important. So it's just a great example. The fishnets, all these weird names, fishnets, dragon
fish
expertise,
legs.
fish leg. It's the fucking thunder.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Fish legs.
You never nature's messing with your mind. It's fine.
Fish legs, dragon expertise is a great example of how to do a premise pretzel. One setup, many payoffs. So.
It's good stuff. Okay. Transition techniques.
Okay, this is mine too. If I can get through it.
Get through it before the heavens open.
Yeah, before our power goes out.
We should have done Twister.
God, that would have been how perfect would that?
A perfect storm. We could have done today.
We just did it right now. You're done.
We're done. Both of them off the list.
Off the list. Yeah.
Twisters.
We almost did Twister when Twisters came out, but we for some reason we got derailed.
The time has passed.
Yeah. Three twists, three turs. I guess that's what we'll do it.
That's an amazing title. Okay. Okay. So this is mine. So this is another lightning crash. This is another thing that I'm not seeing very often in scripts that are sent across my desk. So I'm reading aspiring screenplays from aspiring writers all day, every day, and except on weekends. And one thing consistently that almost even the highest level of writers don't do, it's really what sets the one thing that, besides excellent premise delivery, that sets the aspiring screenwriters from the pros apart, which is writing, putting craft to the transitions between scenes. And what I would compare this to, if you're a comic book writer that's listening, because I consult on comics too, is it's basically the equivalent of a page turn. So you always, in a comic book, the page turn needs to feel smooth, right? From the panel on the right bottom right corner to the you turn the page. It's got to be a smooth page turn. And that's the same thing.
Well, I would say smooth, intentional, or stylish. It depends on
the story, right?
it depends on the story.
It's
But like in
gotta
a
feel
comedy
good.
movie, you can make it funny. You can make the
Mhm.
transition funny, which isn't necessarily smooth, right?
Right. No, it could be jarring on purpose.
On purpose, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it could be shocking on purpose depending on what you're going for. But the idea here is that a good transition, a memorable transition, is writing a mini setup and payoff that bridge the gap between the end of one scene and the beginning of another. And it functions very much like setup payoff within the end of one scene to another. So we haven't talked about this much on the show, but we did a bunch on The Fabelmans, which is Spielberg. And of course, Spielberg is doing it. And then we also did it on Terminator 2. So, and I think we did Die Hard as well. So anyway, I wanted to show how to Train Your Dragon. I didn't track them all because there were so many good ones. The one thing it doesn't do much in the movie is pre-lap. I was searching for a pre-lap to use to give some variety. But this first example is kind of a two-punch. It's kind of doing two techniques at once. So you guys can correct me if you think it's, especially you, Bob, as an editor.
Right.
You guys can correct me if I'm mislabeling this, if you think it's something different. So this one has two. It's a reference to the actual subject being referenced, and then it's a dissolving to coupled with a match. So a match cut. So the example here is Gobber says, he's going to get out there again. Hiccup's probably out there now. And it cuts to a bird's eye tracking shot of the mountaintops. And that movement implies that we're about to see Hiccup. And then as the camera is moving over those mountaintops, there's another transition, which is it dissolves from the mountaintops to an exact match drawing of those mountaintops that Hiccup is drawing. So we see he's still on the quest to kill the dragon. And so it's kind of two at once, which I was like, oh shit.
It's smooth though.
It's very smooth, and it happens within 2 seconds. But that's writing. That's totally writing. So the next one is a very easy one. If you're out there and you've never played with writing the transitions, this is an easy one, which is instead of question to answer, you kind of give the answer and then you raise the question. You do the opposite of it. Gobber says, "Remember, dragons always go for the kill." And it cuts to Hiccup preparing to bait Toothless again. And Hiccup says, "So why didn't you go for the kill?" So it's
literally answering Gobber's
yes, in the next
question.
scene.
Yeah.
In the next scene. So it's a nice, smooth answer, then question. And you can always do question, then cut to the answer.
That exact cut, I remember when I just watched it, I was thinking like it makes you actually realize like he's Hiccup is literally talking to himself because he's so concerned about what he's actually doing right now. Like he's going through his training in his mind to answer the thing that he heard probably hours ago.
Right. The training
it's substantive is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Just that small little transition.
The third one is, I'm calling it thematic opposite scenarios. Empathy to hatred and fear. So it's the beautiful scene where Hiccup holds out his hand to Toothless for permission to touch him. And then Toothless allows Hiccup to use his hand to touch Toothless's snout. And they have a really beautiful bonding moment. Then it cuts to Gobbler telling a gory, scary campfire story to the other trainees about a monstrous dragon biting off his hand. So that's a great example of opposites. And in this case, it's a thematic opposite. Like we're feeling the theme through the transition. So that's writing. And it is your job to do this as a writer out there. Don't leave it to the editor. The editor is supposed to be working with what you wrote. The fourth one is just opposites using dialogue. The Toothless takes flight using Hiccup's mechanical tail fin, and once Toothless realizes his tail fin is fixed, he throws Hiccup off, and they both go tumbling down to the ground. And it cuts to Gobber says, "Today is about teamwork." So you have the opposite, right? It's using dialogue to create an opposites transition. And then the last one I want to do is another different one. So as you can see, contrast works really well with this technique. Number 5 is cause, cut to, effect. And just like question and answer, answer and question, you can do the same thing. You can do effect and cut to the cause. In this case, you end the scene with the cause, you cut to
you could say, who could have done this? Then it cuts to who.
Yeah, who's like
who
standing
actually
there
did
with
this?
The super soaker. They're all they got
covered in blood or something.
Yeah. All right. After successfully flying for the first time, as Bob referenced this earlier during his good news, bad news, Hiccup cheers in triumph. Toothless shoots a fireball in triumph, and their momentum flies them through the fireball. Cut to later, they're on the mountaintop, and exhausted Hiccup is a mess. His hair is a mess. He's covered in soot. So you have the cause, cut to the effect. So those are 5 different types of writing transitions that this movie did, and maybe it got written during the development of the animation itself. But the point is, if you're out there, when you cut from one scene to another, this isn't about like writing dissolve to on the page or cut to on the page or wipe to. Some people still do wipes, or fade out and then fade in. Even though fade to black is something I see more than once, I see that sometimes in the middle of the story. It's not about that. It's about crafting mini setups and payoffs between the end of one scene and the beginning of the next. So
editing is writing and writing is editing.
Oof.
Right?
I need that above my laptop.
Well, it's the truth. I mean, for anyone who has listened to us for all these years, I mean, the edit is the last version of the script, that you're going to write of your movie. So
I run into a thing with writers that when I'm giving notes to them, it's almost on a level before like some of the stuff you're talking about, and the things you're talking about actually can be solutions to it to an extent. But I just simply ask writers to consider, how does one scene throw to the next scene? Yeah, and that's a Terry Rossio term, throw. He said, "What's the throw?" I think he calls it. But just how do they pass the ball? Like what's kind of the mental ball that's being tossed? Like what's the momentum of tossing that ball? Like why does it go from here to there? And just by figuring that out, it should change your scene. It should be like, this changes this, and then it throws to the next scene, and then something else happens and it throws to and it's really a cause effect thing in some ways, but it's kind of tied to it, because what can sometimes happen is without the throw, some people, for the most part, I see no throw and no transition technique, but I also see sometimes no throw but a transition technique. So it's all you know what I'm saying? So they see the transition technique and they're like, and I say, you really need to transition your scenes, and they think that's what I mean, but I'm really talking cause effect. The two are kind of combined, but they could be used separately, so it becomes a weird thing. But I run into it so often, especially the cause effect thing, the throw, that I think if you're not thinking about that and you're a writer out there, just start thinking about that. Like really think, like, how does this scene mentally throw to the next scene? And then maybe apply a transition technique on top of it, to actually do the actual work of the throwing. It's like one's the internal and one's the external in some ways. But anyway, I run into it so often.
I feel like this technique too is like one of the ways to make the movie feel as a whole more than anything. Nice cat. Save the cat. Jimmy's showing
My
us
cat
the cat.
showed up.
The cat showed up.
I think
But-
there are writers out there that do not write in the transition techniques. A good writers, professional writers that don't do the transition, but they always do the throw. And they kind of leave it up to the director what the transition technique is.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then directors, especially in TV, directors are always like, I got to get a transition shot. And sometimes they're really lame, like, walking in the door.
They
the car
pan
pulls
to
up.
the dark side of
Yeah.
the wall, and then the next scene pans out from the dark side of the
Right,
wall. The
right.
number of times I've seen panning from the dark side of the floor, then panning up from the dark side of the floor because there wasn't written.
Yeah.
And I guess I just notice it. Given
No,
that
Yeah, and it's
I
also
do.
I see it.
patching hole. It's
TV all the
you
time.
guys know it's compromises in the shoot, compromises
Yeah.
in the edit.
Yeah.
Sometimes these things they never make it. They don't plan it ahead of time, but it happens.
I've
It's
directed.
filmmaking.
I remember I directed a movie, and I had transitions written into the script, and I shot them and everything. And the notes were people didn't like the transitions, so I ended up cutting them, and then it didn't have transitions anymore. So
that
it's but there's a part of me too that thinks like I kind of like a good transition written in the
I
script.
love it.
But I also could think it sticks out a little. It's a little like sometimes it could break the flow of the story.
It's too much voice, you're saying?
Yeah, sometimes it's better. And again, I'm on the fence because I've seen positives and negatives, but sometimes it's almost like overwriting a little bit. If you do it too much, if you put it in the script too much, and it stops your eyes from just, okay, this scene's over, next scene, this scene's over, next scene. Instead, they put this little flourish in there, that's like a little. So I'm a little mixed on it to an extent. I think it's important, and I think it's important to be in the script. But there's a part of me that wonders, like, to really, really hammer, we got every transition shot planned. That probably gets saved to the shooting draft as opposed to the spec draft. Because I think if you get too technical about it, it can kill the flow of the read. Sometimes if it's used in every scene, if you're like, I'm going to follow this rule in every scene,
That would be distracting.
it'd be distracting. But I do think
like
the
one
throw
or
is
two great transitions in a movie can like change the movie, in my opinion.
right. Like imagine if you did the Indiana Jones puts on the hat and then he has a hat in the next,
You mean
scene.
the Last Crusade?
Yeah, the Last
switch?
Crusade. Like
Yeah.
the Last Crusade switch. Like the downside is I see people do that in every single scene, like something like that. And it could be cool even for a sequence, like for 5 pages or something. But if
Edgar
it's
Wright
every
does it
single scene,
just in the right way.
in
segments.
a movie, I think it works fine. I'm talking on the page.
You're talking about a script.
It's
we just
hard.
lost Jimmy.
It's hard to write sometimes on the page. It's hard to, because you have to write like he puts on the hat. In the next scene, we see Indiana Jones throwing from the last thing. I assume Jimmy's power went out.
Jimmy's power went out. So if you don't, well, we got through all our talking points.
We did. Now we could talk bad about Jimmy.
Yeah, let's rain shit on Jimmy now.
That's right.
But yeah, unless you had more to say for transition.
No, that's it.
We apologize for anyone listening. There is literally a giant thunderstorm.
On the next
attacking all 3 of
episode,
us.
Jimmy will answer my quibble about transition techniques. That's the cliffhanger.
We're gonna do a whole episode on transition.
That's right.
Well, luckily we got to the end of the outline, so we're gonna call. I think we should call it here because my power could go out at any moment too. I'd rather end on us saying goodbye than us getting cut off.
Exactly. I think we're ready to say goodbye. Jimmy has spoken his piece.
Yeah, I mean, hey, like Jimmy would say, please visit scriptbutcher.com for all your consulting needs. And if you have any questions, email us at blockbusterspodcast@gmail.com. Right? That's the right address, right? I forget sometimes. And Jamie, do you have anything you want to plug?
Nope. Save the Cat Writes Horror will be out on September 13th. If you want to pre-order that, please do.
All right, and I think that's everything. We're gonna get out of here before we we lose power completely.
That's right. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is Bob Rose, and thank you for listening to Writers Blockbusters. If you'd like to financially support the show, please consider joining my Patreon. I've been producing the podcast for several years completely out of pocket, and I'd like to keep producing it ad-free and no longer at a loss. If you'd like to help, head on over to patreon.com/Bob Rose Sucks. That's right, Bob Rose Sucks. And if you want the one and only Jimmy George to help polish up that writing project you're kind of struggling with, head on over to scriptbutcher.com. As a listener, you already know he's the best there is, scriptbutcher.com. You can also support the show by simply sharing it or leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate both. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.